When my daughter-in-law pulled out her phone to record me setting the dinner table, I assumed she was just capturing a pleasant family moment. I was meticulously folding white cloth napkins next to the dinner plates while the Sunday roast filled the kitchen with a warm, cozy aroma. Then I heard her loud, mocking voice say that I was their live-in maid and at least I was good for something. She chuckled, tapped her screen, and walked off without a second thought. Moments later, sitting in my kitchen, I checked my own phone and saw the video uploaded with that exact caption. To make matters worse, my son had already commented with a laughing emoji. In that instant, an icy clarity washed over me. A year ago, they had moved into my upstairs rooms to save money for a house, but over time, they had gradually turned me into unpaid labor. I quietly put on my coat, grabbed my purse, locked the front door behind me, and drove away to a quiet bed and breakfast to clear my head. The next morning, I was sitting on my balcony enjoying the crisp winter air when my phone buzzed with a message from my daughter-in-law, Chloe. She demanded to know why her debit card had been declined at the grocery store checkout counter while she was standing there with a full cart. It was the secondary card linked to my account that I had given her for shared household errands. Without a moment of hesitation, I opened my banking app and confirmed that I had completely canceled the card the night before. I did not bother replying to her text, choosing instead to sip my warm coffee and enjoy my breakfast in peace. When I finally returned home around noon, Chloe confronted me in the hallway with a flushed face, demanding to know if I had forgotten to raise the credit limit. I calmly hung up my coat and informed her that I had permanently canceled the card. My son, Julian, stepped out of the living room looking completely stressed by the sudden conflict. He argued that they needed that card to buy groceries, but I looked him straight in the eye and explained that they needed to start paying for their own lifestyle with their own money. I held out my hand, prompting Chloe to huff loudly, dig through her purse, and toss the plastic card onto the entry table while muttering that it was all just a joke for her social media followers. I informed her that since it was my card, I no longer wished to participate in her jokes or fund her shopping trips. Instead of preparing a massive family lunch as I usually did on Sundays, I heated up a single bowl of soup for myself and ate in total silence. Julian hovered near the doorway expecting an invitation to join, but when none came, he quietly walked away. That afternoon, I left their overflowing laundry basket right where it was in the hallway, deciding that my days of doing their chores were officially over. By Wednesday morning, the tension in the house was undeniable. Julian walked into the kitchen holding a wrinkled blue dress shirt, looking completely lost as he explained that he needed it washed for an important afternoon meeting. I took a slow sip of my tea and reminded him that the washing machine in the basement was fully functional and that his laundry basket was upstairs. He looked at me in disbelief, explaining that Chloe did not have time to do laundry because she had a scheduled workout class later that day. I calmly turned the page of my morning newspaper and pointed out that if she had time for the gym, she certainly had time to run a load of wash, or he could easily do it himself. He stomped down the basement stairs in frustration, and later that afternoon, Chloe slammed the front door on her way out without speaking a word to me. Taking back my home meant reclaiming my physical space as well. Their personal clutter had completely taken over my downstairs living area, from fancy magazines spread across the coffee table to stray shoes blocking the front door. I gathered every single one of their belongings, placed them in a large storage basket, and left it right outside their bedroom door upstairs. Then, I dragged my comfortable old wingback armchair out of the guest room and positioned it in the prime spot in the living room right beside the large front window. When Chloe returned home and demanded to know why that outdated chair was ruining their modern aesthetic, I calmly looked up from my book and reminded her that it was my home. I politely requested that they keep all of their personal items restricted to their upstairs living space from that moment on. That evening, Julian tried to mediate the situation while I was in the kitchen preparing a quiet dinner. He mentioned that Chloe was deeply upset and asked if I could give them a break, adding that they were planning a summer beach vacation and had been relying on my usual financial contribution to make the trip happen. I put my dishware away and clearly informed him that I would not be contributing to their vacation fund this year because I needed my savings for home improvements. His eyes widened in shock as he explained that they would not be able to afford the trip without my help, to which I simply suggested they book a more modest vacation that fit their actual budget. Early the next morning, I had a local handyman arrive at 8 o'clock sharp to install sturdy deadbolt locks on both my primary bedroom and my home office. Chloe had developed a habit of wandering into my personal quarters whenever she pleased, searching for supplies or dropping off items she did not want in her way. Around mid-morning, I heard her aggressively rattling the handle of my office door down the hall. When she called out asking if the door was jammed, I stepped into the hallway and informed her that it was locked to protect my privacy. She scoffed and claimed that locking doors was ridiculous for a family, but I simply responded that I was securing my personal peace and quiet before returning to my tasks. My next focus was the garage, which had been crammed to the ceiling with their unpacked moving boxes and forgotten clutter for over a year. Because of their mess, my own vehicle had been forced to sit outside in the rain and snow while their property stayed dry. I spent 3 hours wheeling their boxes out to the backyard and stacking them neatly under the covered carport where they would stay dry but out of my way. After sweeping the floor clean, I parked my car inside the garage for the first time in months. When Julian returned home and angrily asked why their belongings were sitting outside, I informed him that he needed to move everything up to the attic or rent a storage unit, because my car was staying in the garage. By Sunday morning, Chloe attempted a petty form of retaliation by leaving a handwritten note in the refrigerator. The note stated that since I wanted everything separate, they had decided to divide the food supplies, though they had taken my groceries that morning because they had not gone shopping yet. Instead of taking the bait and starting an argument, I spent the afternoon purchasing a compact refrigerator for my home office. I stocked my private fridge with high-quality groceries, fresh produce, and beverages, making sure to lock the office door behind me. When Julian opened the nearly empty main kitchen fridge later that night and asked where the food was, I pleasantly explained that adult housemates are responsible for buying their own groceries. The ultimate test arrived on Friday evening when Chloe invited her parents to stay for the weekend without informing me beforehand. I sat comfortably in my wingback chair as she marched her parents toward the downstairs guest room, only to find the door locked tight. She spun around in frustration, demanding to know where her parents were supposed to sleep for the weekend. I greeted her parents politely before turning to Chloe and explaining that the guest room was no longer available because I had converted it into my personal craft studio. I suggested that her parents could easily stay upstairs on their living room sofa bed, leaving Julian no choice but to awkwardly carry their luggage upstairs while her parents stared at the floor in embarrassment. Once her parents departed on Sunday afternoon, Julian found me working in the garden and tried to guilt me over how uncomfortable the weekend had been for everyone. I set down my garden tools, looked him directly in the eyes, and handed him a formal document from my pocket. It was a standard rental agreement for the upstairs living space, charging a fair market rate plus their portion of the monthly utility bills starting the first of the month. I explained that if they signed the lease, they were welcome to stay as paying tenants, but if not, they had 90 days to pack their belongings and find a new place to live. He stared at the paperwork in total shock, realizing for the very first time that I was entirely serious about setting boundaries. A few days later, Julian knocked softly on my office door and handed back the signed lease agreement. He apologized for his past behavior, acknowledging the disrespect regarding the social media video and their lack of contribution to the household. He mentioned that they were actively searching for their own apartment because Chloe felt it would be better for them to have complete independence. 4 months later, they officially loaded up a moving truck and moved into a modest rental across town. Standing in my peaceful, sunlit living room with a fresh cup of coffee in my hand, I realized a fundamental truth. You never have to beg for respect in your own home, you simply have to enforce your boundaries and take control of your space.